The following podcast contains opinions which are intangible and pose no threat to your safety. It also contains spoilers, which are very real and may harm your viewing experience. You've been warned.
Greetings, everybody, and welcome again to Artistically Speaking. Poor Artist.
Back.
We're back. We are back. We are your poor artists with rich opinions. I am Bam.
I am Dante.
And for those of you just joining us, this is episode 2. And what we do is we simply talk about movies, video games, comics, whatever, and we just sort of bring a little bit of an artistic eye to it. Because honestly, we don't really have very competent opinions. we're not very.
But we changed that up a little from the first episode because I was like, man, that really makes us sound like we're up our own ass.
Oh no! I mean, like you gotta come off confident, Dante. We gotta let them know we know what we're doing.
I just gotta lean down right next to my butt and just
just sniff it in. Get it.
Every time I fart.
So yeah, so we just we talk about movies, games, whatever, and we break them up into 2 segments. We talk about writing and story, and then we talk about the visual aesthetics. But speaking of aesthetics, I want to talk about something, Dante. Will you open your ear to me? Will you lend me your shoulder?
You got my butt.
Fucking, it smells. So the new Star Trek, it's called Star Trek Discovery, came out. Mm-hmm. And this is just to let everyone know that I'm a big fucking nerd, just instantly, right? Like, but the new trailer came out, and I don't know what they're planning on doing, but I do know that they redesigned Klingons.
Well, and, like, what did they change?
Okay, so they look different and they look bad, and I am mad about it.
Just different and bam.
They're not okay. No. They're not okay. It's not just that they're different, all right? Like I'm okay with that. My other thing, if no. Why is that racist?
They look different. They're bad.
Listen, I like the way Klingons used to look. All right, So speaking of racist, the original Klingons were just black people, right? That's just the way they were. They were black people with like. I'm dead serious. If you ever watch, yes, they were. If you ever watch,
there was a black person on the show.
No. If you ever watch the original Star Trek, the OG series, they were black people with like gold painted on them, like they had like gold dust or whatever. That was it. And they were Klingons.
Gold Dust was the worst wrestler.
Gold.
Now you're painting a terrible picture for me.
Yeah, I'm glad you understand. And then Next Generation came around, and they created these really cool designs where they had the ones that we think of, right? Like the one with the ridges and the hair that looks like mine. So like. So you can understand, I was really down with that design. I really loved it. It was so good. And now they're hairless. They don't have the ridges. They look stupid. I don't get it.
Goblins.
They did no. They look like Urukai. They look so bad, and I am so disappointed. I'm still gonna watch the series. I mean, like I'm super excited for it, but I just don't get why would you redesign something that doesn't need to be redesigned? Why?
Dude, they did the same thing with like Castlevania. Like the Castlevania anime, which is on Netflix. I don't want to spoil too much.
It's good. But I like it so far.
I love it so far. But Are
you talking about Alucard?
I'm talking about Trevor and Alucard.
Oh well, okay. Have you seen the original designs for Trevor?
Yeah.
He doesn't look that good. I'm okay with his redesigns.
Well, no. Design-wise, it's fine. But like the story, they are changing up so much.
Okay, but so that's my thing, though, right? Like that's story to me. I'm more okay with that. I'm more okay with changes in the story, but character like design in general, I'm far more particular about because. Design is what keeps things flowing, right? Sonic, for example. Sonic hasn't had a good game in forever, okay? I don't care what anyone says.
There's a reason for that. God hates Sonic.
Sonic the Hedgehog is a terrible franchise. It's absolutely one of the worst, except for like some of the original games. It's just, they're bad games. They've always been bad games. That character exists solely on the fact that he has a very likable design. I kid you not. That is the only reason he exists.
He just goes fast, dude.
The design is so important, and so when they change it up and make it look worse, it's like, why? Because we wanted to be original. No, F off. Get off.
Dude, Knuckles is a feminist now.
Knuckles.
Have you seen that?
I haven't seen that, and I don't want to see it. I don't ever want to see that show, except for the moments where it's really funny. There are moments where that show is freaking amazing, and it makes me sick inside, honestly. I don't want to give something of that nature any credibility, but sometimes it just hits home, you know? Gotta do, you gotta
so you for that show is like me with jump scares. I get so fucking angry when I get hit with a jump scare.
But you like, there's like a mode of like appreciation for it though, right? Like you respect it despite the fact you hate it.
No, I don't. Fuck you. If you make a video game or a movie and you put jump scares in it, fuck you.
Listen, grow a pair of ovaries and woman
it's
the
like
fuck up.
A half a second of me being like, I'll jump a little bit and then I'll be like, oh, you son of a bitch.
All right. But yeah, I can see that. But,
so the movie.
Wow, you are so bad at transitions. I had a perfect watch this, everybody. Watch.
I got this. Don't even trip.
Let Bam take you home. I liked
Castlevania's anime Penguin Shit in the Woods. Also, we watched a movie.
You're terrible at this. So here, watch me. Let me take these people home right now. So there's nothing more important than good character design. And no one has better character design than Hayao Miyazaki. Oh, bam! Segue to the movie that we watched.
Sounded like a touch hole, that whole thing. Nothing is more important than character design.
Am I wrong? I love
you, baby.
So, we watched Spirited Away. And why don't we go ahead and start talking about the writing?
Which... I'm going to lead with, this is the first Studio Ghibli movie I've ever seen.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I totally forgot. So it's a whole new experience for you.
It was something.
Alrighty, well, let's head on over. Let's go ahead and talk about the. It's written and directed by Hayao Miyazaki. First off,
that's right. Yeah.
Yep, and we watched the English version, which it does play a difference, especially as far as writing goes.
Dubs over subs, fuck you.
Dubs over subs all the time. So here's the IMDb. Listen to this IMDb synopsis and tell me what you think. During her family's move to the suburbs, a sullen 10-year-old girl wanders into the world ruled by gods.
She's 10?
Apparently, she was 10. I did not register that.
I would have never... Yeah, okay.
Sullen... And she's also sullen, too, so there's that. 10-year-old girl wanders into the world ruled by gods, witches, and spirits, and where humans are changed into beasts. Like, why...
There's no gods in this movie.
I mean, like, they're spirits, right? I guess.
It's spirits and witches.
Spirits? Also,
there's only 2 witches.
Also, humans are only changed into pigs. Why didn't they just say pigs? Why did they say beasts? Well, to make it seem more fantastical, I think.
The only 2 instances that we ever see is her parents.
No, that whole room is full of pigs. Those are all supposed to be humans.
Oh.
That's what she does. She turns them into pigs. It's like, why beasts? But anyway, so, yeah. As far as this,
no.
This is your first. This is your first Studio Ghibli movie overall, right? So not even Miyazaki movie, just Ghibli.
Yeah, everybody used to talk these up when I was a kid, and I hate when people like in high school and in like middle school and high school. There was always like everybody would talk your ear off about something.
Oh yeah, of course.
And I fucking hated that. like everybody, oh, you gotta see it. It's fucking fantastic. It's amazing. And I'm just like, yeah, okay, maybe I'll check it out. And they're like, no, you have to check it out. You're gonna die if you don't. 7 days. And it's like, no, yeah, I don't really
7 days. Well, so let's go ahead and start off with this. You have to see this movie. If you don't, you will die in 7 days. But no, this is Hayao Miyazaki movies are amazing. They are some of my favorite forms of animation of all time. And as a cartoonist, of course,
beautiful.
Yeah, they're extremely great. But we'll get into that when we talk about visuals. Let's go ahead and talk about the writing. And as far as this story goes, this is my least favorite Miyazaki movie of all time. I know there's a lot of people who absolutely love this one, and it's totally their favorite. But this is my least favorite one.
All fucking over the place.
So let's give it its dues. It starts off pretty okay, right? So it quickly establishes what's going on. We got the girl in the car talking to her parents. They're like, "Oh, we're moving now, and it's it's okay that we're moving." And she's like, "I'm gonna miss all my friends. I don't want to move."
I wanted the iPhone 6, Dad.
kind of. She's a little. I don't know if spoiled's the
She's
right
a little
word.
pompous bitch in the beginning. But she is. There's no ifs, ands, or buts.
I don't think she's pompous.
I wanted a bouquet of roses. You only got me a rose. How dare you?
That's true, actually. You're right. I forgot about that. She, her poor dad. But the thing I like about it, though, is like all of this stuff it's all established in very natural dialogue, right? Like at no point is it about like exposition. It's mostly just, it's a little exposition-y, but for the most part, it's just, this is a family talking to each other on their car ride. And at no point does any of it seem forced. Which I think
not
is...
Not the beginning, no.
No, right, not at the beginning. Like I said, I'm giving it credit where credit's due. And like it establishes like good character development that is going to matter later on. Like we see the parents are very cocky, right? Like the dads, they're just regular. I don't think terrible.
Terrible.
How are they terrible?
Hey, there's this abandoned thing that we probably shouldn't go into. Hey, let me do 300 down this back road with nobody wearing seatbelts.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That's really odd. He's just like, yeah, I'm just gonna. Here we go. But to me, like, it's just like average. They're just people, and I like that about them though. Like, yeah, they're super flawed, but like they're not saints. They're not villains. They're just people doing their thing, which they get punished for, rightfully so, because humans suck. But yes,
they're terrible decision on their part. Oh, hey, there's just this food laying out. A lot of it. Let's just fucking chow down.
Okay, yeah, that's the other thing too. So there's an introduction of like punishment and reward very early on, and I think it's a theme sort of that the story plays with. Like these parents get greedy, they get punished for it. This kid doesn't work very hard, she gets punished for it. And when she does start working, she gets rewarded for it. Stuff like that. And it establishes that, or not establishes, but it sort of sets it up like really early on that this is the theme you're going to see a lot. And that's like, I like that because that is one of the only freaking things this movie establishes. Because every other rule that it tries to set up, it just sort of throws at you and hopes that you understand it, and then it just goes on its merry way. But we'll get to that in a second here. So dad drives them through the forest. They get to this place that's like an old abandoned amusement park, and so they start they're walking through, and this is actually really good as far as writing goes because it introduces like the setting, right? They walk across this field, and he's like, "Oh, they were going to put a river here," which plays a part later. It does a very good job of letting you know, like, of letting you see things from one perspective when it changes perspective later on. And then, the parents who are cocky and just greedy find what would you call that? Just like a vendor or some kind, just
they find like this buffet.
Yeah.
There's no other way.
Well, it's like outside,
it's
right? Yeah, it's like a buffet outside, and they sit down to start eating. No one's there, and the dad's like,
They inhale.
They do. He does. He literally, like, it just goes into his mouth and it's never seen again. Yep.
Oh, it's so good.
Our listeners are gonna love those noises. Thank you so much for providing.
That's what you hear in the movie.
They eat it all, and then so our main character's name is Chihiro, and she she's yelling at her dad, which I like this. Like, so she's a little pompous, but I see that's why I don't think pompous is the right word. I think she's just a little spoiled. She's not used to certain things, and if anything, she's actually very not introverted, but she's kind of reserved, I guess. She doesn't want to move to a new place because she's afraid of making new friends and leaving her old friend, all this stuff. And then, like, her dad and mom are just like, let's go out and do these things, and she's like, no, like that's scary, I don't want to do that, you know what I mean? And it's the same here. Her dad is like, I've got credit cards, I've got whatever, I can eat it all, and she's just like, no, like, that's rude, like, we can't do that. And then, they don't listen to her and they just eat like mad. And then she's like, oh, well, I guess they're not listening, so let me just walk away. So she goes and explores, and she meets this boy, very handsome looking boy, who's like, starts freaking out on her as the sun starts setting, despite the fact that it looked like it was noon a little bit ago. And
don't worry about it.
And so he tells her to leave, and then she starts freaking out, and he starts freaking out. So she runs to get her parents, but her parents aren't there.
They're there. Well, I mean, they're there. They're just, now they're pigs.
Wow, I totally set you up, and you just fucking threw the bowling ball right into the gutter. I was just like, but they're not there, and I was expecting, like, but what is there are pigs. Wait, nope, you just fucking lob that ball right into the gutter.
They just turn big old disgusting piggos, okay?
They do.
Some Charlotte's Web type bullshit. These some ugly ass, snorting ass, bullshit ass pigs.
They do. They turn into pigs. Obvious allegory, or not allegory, but like, I mean, it's obvious that they're greedy. They're greedy and gluttonous, so they turn into pigs. So she freaks out. She tries to run away, but she can't, because that big field that they saw is actually now like a huge lake, and there's like this really creepy boat that's coming across, and long story short, it turns out that she's been sort of absorbed, I guess is the best word to put it. Like, she's been absorbed into this the other side of this spirit plane, where she sees all these spirits and yokai and different kinds of monsters, and she's super, like, she starts freaking out, she starts turning invisible, and this to me is where the story really goes wrong, because it has the most, like I said before, just the clunkiest rule setup of all time. She's going invisible. Why? They don't explain it. She runs away, and then she meets Haku, that pretty boy from before, and he's like, eat this, and she does, and it makes her better. And why? And then
she's still invisible to all the other spirits,
right? And then but if they go across this bridge and then she breathes, she won't be invisible anymore, so she has to hold her breath. Why? Like, I get it. It's a fantastical world, magic and shit, sure, but any little
but no face can still see her.
They
break their own rules while they establish them.
Well, I don't think, is No Face on the...
He's on the bridge, yeah. The first time she crosses, he's standing in the middle of the bridge.
Yeah.
And that's what she sees. Is like, she makes eye contact with him, and he looks at her as she's passing, and he keeps like watching.
Yeah, and then the frog comes up, and she gasps because of talking frog, I guess. And then everyone can see her, and then they fly away. It's first off,
what's that, a human?
Yeah,
and he hits him with that magic combo breaker.
Dude, he pretty much just stuns his ass. It's pretty great. So like, there are certain things that don't bother me and do bother me, and I want to break them. I want to break it up because I don't quite understand why. Maybe talking with you will help me figure it out. So like when he does like the combo breaker thing, right? It's like, or like earlier when he blows his scales and it's supposed to do something. I get that. Those are spells, right? There's no explanation, and I understand that, but I understand that the magic is coming from him, so I think that it's okay. But then the whole people can't see her if she has to eat this thing that stops turning her invisible. Why was she turning invisible? Like, there's other things that are coming, like that that involve the world around her. And when those aren't established, that's when I get all cranky about it. I think that's what it is. I think when he does magic, I know it's his magic and it comes from him and he can do whatever. You don't have to establish it. I get it. It's just something he can do. Sure. I can let that go. But when the world is doing things and it's not established, that's when I just hesitate. Like, it really breaks my suspension of disbelief. And this movie is terrible for it. It does it all the time. Things happen because the plot needs it to happen. And I get that. Because Hayao Miyazaki, when he writes movies, he doesn't do it like a script form, right? He does a storyboard first, and then they create the dialogue based off the storyboard, so on and so forth. I understand that process. I'm just saying, all of his other movies don't really have this problem, but this one really freaking does. It, you know, like, there's so many moments where it's like, just tell me why. I just want to know why. So anyway, they, you know, she gets caught, kind of, and Haku flies her away to this other place. And then he touches her head, and then he's like, you can read my minds now, go to this place. And then he deuces. And then she's just sort of okay with it. And this is my other problem, is they just crammed so much down our throats. Like, instantly. Like, 10 minutes worth of random stuff, just beat after beat after beat after beat of these things happening, and give us no time to digest it.
Yeah, a metric buck ton crammed into like so little, and then it's like, oh yeah, well, your plot's gotta go though.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, are you serious? Like, give it, like, let it breathe for a second, you know? And like, I don't know, like, there's a moment where like her legs don't move, but he makes it okay, and they don't explain why her legs aren't moving. And then, you know, he does the mind meld thing where he's basically a Vulcan, and it's like, my thoughts to your thoughts, and everything's good again. And then she has no, like, she doesn't show any real fear, any real anxiety. Man, I would be so anxious if all this happened to me instantly. My anxiety would be so through. I would just be like, just pooping water. Like, I'd be so stressed. My gut would be so tight, and I would just be like, I'd be throwing up. I'd be miserable. I'd be clammy. Like, and we don't see any of that portrayed at all. She's just sort of like, oh, I have to go down these steps. Cool. You know, I would not be okay with just this concept of like Haku just leaves and he's like, yeah, I'll be back later. It's like, no, tell me something. And like, even a little, you know, like, just any kind of emotional like response I would have taken, even if it's just one bit. You know, I feel like a lot of, especially in writing, you don't need a lot. You know, like, if she were super whiny and complaining, I'd be annoyed too, right? Like, but just a little bit, just a little acknowledgement that all this shit happened to her. Like, hey, don't leave me.
Something has happened.
Yeah, like, hey, don't leave me, please. You know, like, and he'd be like, no, I gotta go. But please wait. You know, just something, just a little bit to make it be like, oh yeah, she's being affected by this world. Instead, it totally seems like she just fucking smoked like 8 joints and just like chill as fuck. She's just like, whatever, spirits, am I right? It's like, no, like, react. And then, so she walks down the stairs to find Kamaji, which stair breaks, she runs down screaming. And it's like, that I totally get. I've been in those situations before where like I run down a hill and then you can't stop yourself and you just start jetting, and like, that's fine. But then like, why is it that she can emote there, but then like actual emoting doesn't happen? You know what I mean? Like, she breaks down these steps, or she breaks down a step and she starts flying down. She's screaming top of her lungs, runs into a wall, and it's kind of funny. It's silly. It's whatever. But like, you know, she should be like freaking out, like hyperventilating, like none of that.
I'd have tried to swim across, to be honest. Like, that big lake, I'd have just swam.
Oh yeah,
I'd have just floated.
Well, I mean, she didn't want to leave her parents probably, but I just floated, just to lay on your back and just backstroke across.
They're dead.
But so she goes down these steps, blah blah blah. She makes her way to Kamaji, the boiler man. And when Haku mind melded with her, he was like, listen, ask this person for a job, and then that should help you out. And you'll, you know, if you're working here, no one will notice you. It'll be fine. More or less is what he says. So, again, without really explaining why, just sort of telling her to do so. So she finds him, and in a cute little charming scene, he's like, I don't want your work. You're pretty useless. I've casted, and this scene makes sense, right? I feel like every time they have Kamaji in here, this is like good writing. So Kamaji's there. He explains, like, listen, I cast spells on the soot. This is why these soot balls are walking around doing work for me. I don't need your help. Like, just that little dialogue. That's pretty much all he says. He's like, that's all I really need. And then, like, it explains it just enough. It's like, okay, I get it. Like, that's his magic. That's what he does. So he's the one who heats up the boiler room to this huge bathhouse that's like the main setting for this movie. Just this big ass bathhouse. And, she keeps asking for work. He denies it until, one of the soot balls fucks up, and she gets squashed. Yeah, so she has to pick up the coal, and these chunks of coal are super heavy. So she, does her best to carry it, and she puts it into the furnace, while struggling the whole way. And then, for her work, she's rewarded. Basically, what happens is there's a person who comes down. Her name's Lynn, and she's like, she comes to feed the soot balls. I guess she's just sort of like takes care of Kamaji's needs. She's grabbing his bowls and stuff, kind of like a servant. She's another co-worker there, and Kamaji's like, yeah, she's my granddaughter. Go ahead and take her away. Ask her if the head of the place will give her a job. And it's just like it's a very quick scene, and you kind of get it, like, oh, okay, he's rewarding her for just trying, right? Like, she's persistent. Chihiro has been very persistent through this, and I like that. I like that there's a constant theme.
Yeah, that's incredibly reoccurring throughout the whole thing. Is like the more work she puts in, the more reward she gets.
Yeah, as far as so thematically the writing's great. It's just, man, like, there's the plot.
They don't. I feel like this is one of the ones where they should have scripted and then storyboarded, because it just like there's a lot of scenes that just feel like there's scenes that feel like they drag on for too long, and then there's scenes that feel like they got rushed.
Yeah, well, because like
so quick.
The rushed ones are very much Deus Ex Machina, right? Like, just things happen for the plot. They don't happen for any other reason other than the plot needs them to happen to move the story forward. And to me, that's lazy writing. And I can say that because the story really wasn't written, right? It was drawn.
That's like in the very next scene where she goes up to Baba's office.
Right.
And she's like, hey, give me a job. And then Baba's like, nah. And then she's like, hey, but give me a job though. And then Baba's just like, nah. And then she's like, but hey, give me a job though. And then the baby comes in, baby ex machina.
Yeah. Baby ex machina.
And then she's like, all right, I'll give you a job if you just keep it down so the kid stays quiet.
Yeah. She has this. So Baba Yaga is the witch who owns this bathhouse, and she has this really big baby, like huge baby, kind of terrifyingly so. And Chihiro's yelling, wakes up the baby, and because Baba or not Baba Yaga, what's her name? It's Yubaba. I'm sorry. So Yubaba is the witch. So Yubaba, because she doesn't want to deal with her screaming baby, tells Chihiro, like, fine, I'll do it for you, whatever. It's like, why? just why? And I think that's what, like, for the most part, I just ask myself that. Like, there's this movie really is just a bunch of sequences that are stringed along, right? Like, they're just sort of along for the ride. Things happen, next scene. Things happen, next scene. And there's no real structure to it, I feel like. I mean, that baby comes to play later, but honestly, you could take him out of the story and you'd be okay. Like, there's a lot of things you could just remove and the story would somehow still work.
Right. Well, the next, following that, like there's like a 20 to 25 minute sequence of just her working.
It's not that long. But it is like it's like 10 minutes. But
it's pretty long. It didn't need to be that long.
No, it didn't. But I also think it's supposed to establish time moving by too, which is really hard to, because like time is weird here. It's the spirits wake up at night, they go to bed during the day, so you don't really know like how much time passes. Like it seems like for the most part, like just by the montage. Like, time is supposed to be passing, but I feel like every time you look around, it seems like it's just the same day as when she got trapped there in the first place.
Right.
But I also like that because this is a visual thing, but it sort of establishes like how dreary it is working a service job like that, because like all you see is the inside of the place. You really get to step outside. But we'll get to that later. Yeah, seriously. So, but it's interesting you say that, because that's actually one of the scenes I like the most in the movie, because this movie, if you listen to our last episode, we talked about the voices and how the voices does like too much show don't tell. I'm a huge fan of show don't tell for mediums that are very visual, right? But yeah, so like the last podcast we talked about a movie that kind of does too much show don't tell, and that's like the only time I'll ever say that. This movie doesn't nearly do it enough, and it's an animated movie, and that bothers me.
Right.
This movie, if it's telling you anything, it's because it's being told to you. It is. It's like, oh, he, like Haku is this or that. People tell you that. I don't see it. In fact, I barely even see the character. When, like everything you hear about
He's
people,
evil. Oh, bitch, where?
Everything you hear about people, you expect to see in their behavior, but you don't. Which is weird, because like there are moments where this movie really takes its time to show you like beautiful backgrounds and all this other stuff, but it won't take the time to tell a story. And that bothers me. That bothers me a lot about this movie.
Well, and we had there's another scene later in that we'll talk about where like I got the sisters confused.
Oh yeah, but
we'll bring that up later. But
yeah, so
there is a lot of Deus Ex. There's not a whole lot of story.
I mean, I feel like the story there is very fairy tale-ish, so it's not going to be a meaty story to begin with, and I understand that. I love fairy tales. I love a very folkloric story. It establishes that, or not establishes, but it sets up a 3-act structure that it likes to follow, and usually it establishes a moral of some kind, and this movie does that a lot. It's in that essence, it's very much a fairy tale, and I like that about it. But where it lacks in substance, it should make up for it in some kind of whimsy or something else that it just certainly doesn't.
Right.
Despite the gorgeous visuals of this movie, and like we'll get to that later, and how much, but everything looks great. It's just great art and design. Despite that, this story chugs along. It really stresses to get out, because it doesn't know how to segue things, much like Dante doesn't. Like it doesn't. Like,
listen, man.
Seriously, like at the beginning, or not even at the beginning, but like just all over the place. It struggles to connect the pieces together. It just doesn't know how to move forward. Chihiro works hard for a montage, and then she ends up there's a little foreshadowing where she lets in a guest that she doesn't know who he is, and he kind of helps her out a little bit, which is always I like that.
Well,
I like that
sex.
establishment. No, that's what I mean. That's why I called it foreshadowing. It is foreshadowing. It's she doesn't really know who this person is, but she does it out of the goodness of her heart, because she's a kid. She's just like, oh, you're in the rain, come on in. And he tries to help her too, for doing that genuine act of decency. And then, and she like, okay, I just thought about that. So in this next scene, Chihiro she's called Sin because her name was taken away, but neither here or there. She has to work a lot. She has to, they have like this guest come in who's they think he's a stink spirit, right? It's just the worst being around him. He looks like a sack of poo if you fucking left it in the sun for a while. Like it's terrible. And
Pretty gross.
Yes, it's really gross, and I absolutely like love the design, but again, we'll get to that later. So like, she's the only, they force her and her mentor to deal with it because they want to, punish her for just existing. But Chihiro comes out on top. She doesn't give up. She ends up finding a way to clean it. Turns out it's not a stink spirit, but this grand river spirit. And it rewards her for all of the work that she did by giving her this super strong medicine. And to me, I think this scene sort of sets up the rest of the movie, and that this movie is it is the struggles of Chihiro. That's what it is. The many trials of Chihiro, right? Like a Hercules tale almost. Like it does this. It sets this up. She gets this cool, she has this thing she has to overcome. She overcomes it with ease. She gets a cool loot for it, some kind of trinket or whatever, and then it moves on to the next bit, and then she has another trial that she has to overcome, and she figures a way to do it, and then she gets some kind of reward for it, and then she moves on to another trial, and so on and so forth.
Well, and it's at this point in the movie where like things start to accelerate, and it really shows that the writing wasn't all there. I at least in my opinion, this is where like it's once she gets the medicine ball, that's where things really start to hyper accelerate, and that's where the lack of writing almost shines through, because she gets this end all be all medicine ball, that she uses on several occasions, but it's now they start to introduce like all these subplots.
Yeah, that just sort of come and go.
They go nowhere, but there's like a shit ton of subplots that they introduce that just go nowhere.
But that's what I mean by like trials, right? Because that's what these plots are. Like, so it turns out that like Haku is also a dragon, and he's being attacked by Yubaba's twin sister Zaniba, and Chihiro has to save them. Bam, subplot. The guy that she let in turns out to be a monster called No Face, and he's wrecking shit up, and she has to go in and save him. Bam, trial. Like it just, and there's no real flow to it. It's just, these are things that are happening that she overcomes, and then and then she does.
And it just it's here's an obstacle, overcame it. Here's an obstacle, but she overcomes every trial the same way.
With the medicine ball.
With the medicine ball.
Yeah. Well, no. The idea is like it's supposed to be okay. Okay, I just hurt myself thinking about this, but it's not supposed to be the medicine ball. It's supposed to be her devotion, aka her love, and this is the biggest problem I have with this movie. And a lot of people right now just like hissed at me, right? A lot of people are like, oh, but it's so cute and whatever. I hate, what's the word I'm looking for? I don't like love subplots that are thin as fuck. I like, if you're going to involve love or romance,
that THSCC.
Well, yeah, like you need a lot of build up. It can't be, you just can't throw it in there willy-nilly, and that's what they do, and it's the most annoying thing to me. And this is definitely a personal thing, obviously, because I know tons of people who are all down for a good...
we're gonna get crucified for this.
Oh yeah, absolutely, but you know what, bring it on. That's okay. I'll come back in 3 days. Watch me.
I
hate it because it feels superficial. It feels disingenuous, and to me, that's like the most important thing about writing, is that it feels genuine and natural. And her quote unquote devoted love, I'm not gonna call it romantic love. I don't think she's 10, right? Like I just think like she loves these people that she meets because they help her. Like she's just a very caring person. Now, because in the beginning of the movie she was a spoiled brat. Put it across. They don't put it across romantically. There's never a point where like she's kissing on people or doing anything like that. It's they're her friends. It's a love where she cherishes them. It's not like she wants to bang them. Like it's not romantic love. And at any point,
the only love she feels is for Haku.
That's not true. Like she cares for No Face because he helped her out. She cares for the baby once that turned into a mouse. And our audience was just like, who haven't seen this movie, we're like, wait, the baby turns into a mouse? Like, yes, listen, there's a lot of weird things that happen in this movie. But yeah, the point still stands though. Like, it's.
But I remember watching this with you, and I remember the exact moment when like, my suspense of disbelief was just like, it was just like, come on.
Oh yeah,
like she gives him the medicine ball, he coughs up that black thing, she steps on it. And it's like, oh yeah, only true love could have broken that spell. And I'm like,
just out of nowhere.
What? What?
Oh man, I know.
This makes no sense.
It just so from left field.
It was so out of fucking nowhere.
And then
it just made me hurt.
So she's worried about like after she does these trials and stuff, and like one of the trials is like she has to like Haku has been poisoned, and you know she wants to save him, and she thinks he was poisoned because he stole this item from Yubaba's twin sister. So she goes over to Yubaba twin sister Zeniba's house, which is this whole thing, and then Zeniba, it turns out to be the good sister, and she's kind of just like Glenda the Good Witch, right? She's a total sweetheart.
Yeah, and I'd like to point out the first interaction that Shiro ever had with Zeniba was like, "You need to shut up, or I'm gonna rip your tongue out of your goddamn mouth." And I'm like, oh no.
Yeah, well, I mean, I get it. She could be angry, but whatever.
Well, because Yubaba, her evil thing was she was like, "I'll turn you into a toad."
Well, no, her evil thing is that she's super greedy, and then right? That's her thing.
Zeniba's just like, "I will rip your tongue from your face hole. Shut your mouth." And I'm like, is this the eviler sister?
Yeah, it doesn't. It's just. I'm okay with that though, because like. I get it. She's trying to kill this dragon that stole something very powerful for her. And like the way they make it seem like is that the item that Haku took is so powerful, like it could just like the most powerful thing in this shittily established universe, right? So I get why she's like, listen, I'm not playing no games. Give me my freaking thing back. Give me back my gold seal. And to me, so like I'm okay, but it actually turns out like she's a sweetheart, and I'm like, okay, I get it. Like she's just someone who knows when to nut up and shut up, right? Like it's either nut up or shut up, and she was like, I'm gonna nut up and I'm gonna fucking threaten you, and and like she has all these paper things that like she has all these paper things that tear up Haku and almost kill him, which is part of the reason why Chihiro has to save him in the first place. It's just.
It's very rushed.
It's rushed, and if it sounds like we're just sort of skimming over it or scanning over it, or we're jumping from scene to scene, it's because that's how the movie plays out. There's no segue, there's no build up. It just sort of happens. Things happen and then they don't happen.
Oh god, I wish drinking game. If we ever decide to watch that again. I wish we'd have recorded that night, because the best drinking game that you would have definitely have died from would have been like me sitting there being like, well, I guess we're here now.
Yep.
I guess this is the thing now.
Literally, I'm like, oh, here we are. Like, just guess this is what's happening. Like, it just that's pretty much like every 10 minutes of this movie. And I mean, and don't get me wrong, I don't want to give off I'm being very hard on it. I understand that, but I do like this movie. I will admit, it's a fine, fun movie, but we'll get to that later. Anyway, so she goes to Zeniba's, and Zeniba is like, oh, like, I'm actually really nice. And then she's like, please, like, don't hurt, take your evil spell off of Haku. And Zeniba's like, no, like, you broke my spell. Only love can break this spell. And it's like, what? And then,
what?
And then it turns out that the medicine saved Haku, and he runs to Yubaba, and he's like, I'm not working for you anymore. You're gonna save Chihiro. And she's like, well, maybe if she passes this one thing.
Hands off of you, damn dirty ape.
You blew it up. Anyway, so he rescues Chihiro. Chihiro finishes her final trial. And then her parents wake up as humans on the other side of the field that turned into a lake that's no longer a lake, and she goes home.
I would like to point out there is one other subplot in here that's established.
Yeah.
And it's a running thing throughout the movie, but it has no impact whatsoever on the outcome of anything. So the Dragon Boy doesn't know his name.
Yeah.
And that's a running thing throughout. He's like, I remember everything but my name, and that's how she gets you.
Right. That's how it's established. Yubaba controls you by taking your name, and then you never get it back. So like the running thing throughout the movie is like he doesn't know his name. He's just like, yo, just call me Haku, it's whatever, it's all good.
And then she tells him she finds out that, you know, his name is like the river spirit of this whatever river, and there's like this thing of like the magic breaking,
Yeah.
but it goes nowhere. He still stays behind to work for Yubaba.
No, well, he says I'm not working for her. That's it. He says that. It doesn't.
Okay, yeah. So
It doesn't really go anywhere, to be sure. But you know, like at the end when he's like, okay, go. Your parents are on the other side. Don't look back. For some reason, another rule that they don't establish. And then he's like, you know, I'm done with you, Baba. I'm gonna go and help out all the other spirits and blah blah blah. And then she's like, visit. You know, I'll see you again. And he's like, yeah, you'll see me again. Don't you worry. And then
in 8 years.
Yep. And then that's it. And then the movie ends. And again, I want to reiterate, I know I'm being super hard on this movie, but it's only because I know all you fuckers love this movie, and I just don't get it. There's so much wrong with this movie that, to me, like, people who are like, it's my favorite, I really don't understand it. I mean, I'm glad that it's your favorite. I'm glad that you have something that you can love. I'm not trying to take that away from you. I don't get it.
That's a good segue, though, is like, I think what carries this movie is in a very same sense as like the voices, is like the visuals carry it.
Oh, look at this boy bringing up segue.
Right. I don't think it'd be nearly as loved if the visuals from Studio Ghibli were, you know, subpar. Because there are things with subpar visuals that, like, you know, if the writing's good, people fucking love it.
Yeah.
But this is like one of those cases where like it feels rushed, everything feels forced. There's ex machinas out the fucking asshole. There's subplots that go nowhere. The main story just changes itself at will. I mean, it really is not good writing.
Yeah.
But
the visuals...
beautiful.
All right,
it's animated flawlessly.
Let's go ahead and start talking about those then.
I mean the visuals blew me away. As somebody who's never seen it, like I've seen clips and things of these movies, like on TV or whatever. You see the commercial, they're like, you know, you catch it, and somebody will use a clip from it in a video or something. But I never sat down to watch these because like they never really were my aesthetic.
Mm-hmm.
Now that being said, I love how this movie looks.
I'm glad you brought up aesthetic because that's the first thing I want to talk about. So, like I said before at the beginning of this podcast, I'm a huge fan of Miyazaki movies. It's pretty much all of the movies how Miyazaki worked on. I'm a huge fan of. Some of the other Studio Ghibli movies are hit or miss for me, but Hayao Miyazaki is generally like it. I just love him.
He's a fantastic artist.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Even if he is a little bit of a stubborn old man. But no, the aesthetic in this movie is perfect because a lot of his movies use very cool colors oftentimes because he does a lot of like summery, foresty movies, right? Nausicaa, even Kiki's Delivery Service, like there's a lot of cool colors, a lot of cool greens, a lot of cool blues. This movie though is almost always warm, and I love it. It makes sense.
Browns and reds and
reds and oranges and yellows, and like there's always like everything has a faint glow to it almost all the time, and I get it. You know, like it works too because it's mostly for the setting. You know, this movie, everyone's awake at night and they all go to sleep during the day. So a lot of the time you're seeing stuff happening at night. So everything has like a nice faint yellow glow to it. It looks so good. It's probably one of my favorite as far as like that aesthetic goes. Also too, I'm a huge fan of lanterns. And of course they got lanterns hanging up everywhere. Like it looks gorgeous. As far as like the backgrounds go, he always kills it. I don't know. I don't know what team he has that works on. Because I'm sure it's several artists, but man, they always do killer backgrounds in these movies, and this movie's no different. There's a point in the movie where it rains so much that like the world becomes almost like an ocean. So, but it's like a shallow ocean, so like you can walk in it, and it only comes up to like your like your calves, and I love that. That is, I don't know what it is. The way the water looks not only is amazing, but just the concept of that. And that's another thing too. There's a lot of concepts in here that are just amazing, like the field that turns into a lake, you know, or like the way the boats look. The concepts and designs of a lot of these spirits are memorable. Even like even the frogs, right? Like some of the frogs, you know, they look a little more like weird frog human hybrids, but then you get other ones that look like actual frogs. The designs in those are great. There's a lot of weird designs for some of the spirits, but I'm sure they have basis in yokai.
Dopeface has a really strange design, especially when he goes into like his all-out like Punisher mode, like, and he's got all these arms and this huge mouth, and like he just like, you know, he's got a very strange design. The blacksmith has or not the
Kamaji or Kimoji.
Kamaji. Yeah. He has a very strange design, but none of them ever feel like they're so out there that it's like, you know, like they all look very visually pleasing.
Yeah, he has a good way of keeping proportions that look good, right? Like, I mean, they're not always accurate. Like those frog people, right? Their heads are huge, you know, comparatively, which gives them a little more of a cartoony look, but it's not too big. Kamaji,
he has a way of making these creatures where it's like, and it, like, you know, you see Mortal Kombat and you see like Goro, and Goro just looks like somebody copy and pasted arms slightly lower,
right?
Because like he's got shoulders and everything there and this and that, but you don't get that with Kamaji. Like Kamaji looks like he should be this way.
Yeah, no, and I love it too, because Kamaji has one of my favorite Miyazaki tropes, and that's big ass mustaches that cover like the bottom of the face. And to me, something about that design is like one of my favorites, in anything. But Miyazaki he always does that. Cause I love it too. Cause like, that's the thing. Kamaji, is a great example of how, Miyazaki is capable of emoting his, characters through animation and not through like, what's the word I'm looking for? Just like it's not just there. It's through the motion, if that makes sense.
Right.
Like you can't see his mouth for the most part. You can't see his eyes because he has these Dr. Robotnik glasses on. So like you still know very much like what he's feeling and thinking, and I feel like that's a very superb form of animation.
He has a great way of showing emotion.
Yeah, like for example, like the crooked smile. That's another thing he's really good at. When characters are being cocky, he always gives them like this little crooked smile, and it's a tiny detail, but like it makes it mean so much more. And of course, like it helps too because the animation is all done in I think 30 frames per second. Sorry, 30 or 26, something like that. So it's absolutely great. I love too like how the animation captured, like it doesn't just capture like emotion, but it also captures like certain behaviors and stuff. And that's why I'm so mad that they didn't do enough show don't tell, because like there's moments where you see like Chihiro puts on a shoe, right? And the way she puts on her shoe, like, you know, she pulls it up by the ankle or by the heel. She pulls it up by the heel. She taps it on the ground a little bit to make sure it fits in. You know, like it just so much of that little behaviorism.
It's little things that really humanize the characters.
Yes, exactly. So why is it that when important things or any form of story establishment happen, you just sort of blurt it out in your dialogue? Like you could show it's so, and he does this in those other movies too, which I think is why it's so criminal to me, because like there's a lot of moments where like you'll see character in his other movies, you'll see characters like just doing things, behaving in a way that explains the story, and this one he doesn't do that much.
Well,
and I think
that's part of the way that he works, though, is because he's not looking at it as like a writer and then creating the visuals. He's creating these visuals so he sees how everybody's going to react. He sees how everybody's going to do everything, and he makes it, and then he just writes around it.
Yeah, but that's my point though, was like in this movie it's very obvious. In all of his other movies, well, most of his other movies anyway, it's not. Like if we, one of these times we'll have to watch Princess Mononoke, my all-time favorite movie of all time. Princess Mononoke is just one of the best movies I've ever seen. It's not only my favorite Miyazaki movie, just my favorite movie in general. But yeah, like the way the characters behave writes the story. You know what I mean? Like at no point are they just sitting there spewing out quick dialogue that doesn't explain anything to explain nothing. Like, it's just, I don't know, it's just so much better. And he does that with a lot of his movies. And this movie, for some reason, he missed the ball, and I don't know what it was. I don't know if he was trying to dumb it down for kids. Like, oh, I have to explain these things because kids need words to explain things. I don't know if that was the case or what was going on, but just something about it was off. And it seems it's like such a miss that that he couldn't portray the story better through more visuals instead of clunky exposition. Another thing too, so we were talking about the parents being pigs earlier, and just gobbling down that food.
Big ol'
If I could eat his food, I would. The way he portrays food is so freaking good.
It does look like good food. Yeah.
There's a big ass fish, not descaled, not just a big ass fish with its head cut off, just laying there. And between the colors and the shading and the highlights, I was like, I want to take a bite out of it. Like nowhere else would I ever, like if I saw that in reality, I'd be like, oh, that's gross. But the way he draws food, I don't know why he's so good at it. I don't know what it is about it. Maybe it's the fact that it looks shiny. It's always glossy. I don't know. Something about it just makes it look so delicious. And I know I've been like, I've just been singing the praises of the visuals because they are good. But I want to, but I want to balance it out a little bit. So let me bring up some things that I'm not a huge fan of. And this movie is the first digitally done movie of Studio Ghibli, and holy crap does it show. The 3D in this movie is absolutely freaking terrible. It is so bad. It is so bad. I mean, I get it, like, when they're doing things traditionally, sometimes you get like cells that aren't painted properly, whatever. I'm not, I get that both have their flaws, whatever, but just because they were doing stuff digitally doesn't mean they had to use 3D in certain aspects, and I wish they didn't. That scene where they're running by the flowers, it kills me every time.
It throws it out of its element.
It really does. It's so weird, and it doesn't belong there. And sometimes, like the water when it's drawn, oh, it's so good. And then the water when it's 3D animated looks so fake. And it's like, you just should have stuck with just drawing it. Like, I get it, it's cheaper, it's faster, whatever, but man, it did not look good. And maybe that was them just testing it. Like I said, this was the first one that they did digitally in Studio Ghibli, but man, it looks so bad. And then the other thing I wanted to note is the big ass tears. This is a Miyazaki thing, and it blows my mind every time I see it. And when we watch other Miyazaki movies or other Studio Ghibli movies, I will bring it up. Their tears are huge. Their eye ducts would explode as like they're trying to like.
What's that? Bam complaining about over proportions after complimenting proportion?
No, man, listen, all right? This is a design thing. It's like every time I see them cry, all I can think about is how bad it would hurt for one of those massive ass eye drops to squeeze out of an eye duct, like, or your tear duct, not eye duct, your tear duct. Like, that would hurt so bad. And like it's always happens, and I get it, right? Like, he does it because he wants them to be very visible.
I think it works. I think for his style, in the way that they portray everything with the proportions, I think it works. I really do. I think stylistically it's a nice choice.
I don't. When they're running down their faces, these big ass tears, all I can think about is those people who can like squirt milk out of their eye. Like that's what it makes. Yeah, that's what it makes me think about. Like it's just like these huge tears just like squeezing out of their eye socket. Like, stop it, man. It's not like I prefer it if they just showed like streams, not just they literally look like massive beads. Like, have you ever played did you ever play the Pokemon card game? This is a deep cut right here. The Pokemon card where they used to have like those marble beads or whatever that would denote like certain things. I forgot what they were used for. I think it was for like your elements or whatever. That's what these tears remind me of. It's like if those were coming out of my eyes. It is the one design flaw. It's not a flaw. That's the one thing I do not appreciate about his design and his characters and stuff. Those teardrops are too big. Make them smaller.
I like them. I think they work.
Yeah, but that's pretty much all I got for the visuals. Again, I know we've been singing its praises. I feel like this is a very like a yin yang sort of episode.
It has its shortcomings in certain aspects, like especially in the 3D aspects where they went with 3D because it feels so out of its element. But it is a movie that has beautiful visuals.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
If anything, that is what it has.
But I mean, it should be though, because it's made by an artist, right? Like you'd think,
right?
I'm sure that don't get me wrong, there are tons of movies that are or animated movies that are just visually unappealing. But Miyazaki is definitely a very talented artist who knows what he's doing. Be it color theory, be it just his design choices, the style of animation, just how fluid it is. He's very skilled, and on that matter. But anyway, like I was saying, like this is a very like a yin yang podcast, right? Because our episode for our podcast, because like the first half of this podcast is us ripping into this movie, and then the second half is just us singing its praises. Because those visuals are just so good, and they really make up for it. But if you'll follow me, Dante, and let's go ahead and give our last thoughts on the movie.
Overall, like we said, the writing wasn't all there. There's a lot of Deus Ex. There's a lot of really weird shit that goes on that just gets me, and I'm just like, what? Why?
Now I do want to know. So like, there is a thing. There's a big difference between Japanese style of writing and American style of writing, right? Like Americans really like our 3 act structure. We definitely like our hero's journey, stuff like that. A lot of Japanese movies don't really care for the 3 act structure. A lot of times it's just sort of events happening, which is why I think Japanese are terrible at writing endings, because a lot of Japanese stories that I've experienced have really anticlimactic endings, and this one is a little bit too. Although I would say that the ending does wrap up her whatever character arc she's going through. But do you think that's part of it? Do you just prefer like a 3 act structure, or?
It's not that I prefer a 3 act structure. It's that I prefer a story that's cognitive, something that's not going to force everything down. You can do different things with a story, and you can portray things in a different way, but you can't have so much coming out of left field to where like it just throws you totally out of the loop. Like you can't have all these ex machinas. You can't just be like, oh yeah, the character did this, and now they get this end all be all thing for minimal work, and that's going to be their answer for like every problem that they have following down the road. Is like, they're just, oh hey, take a bite of this and you're fine. Like, so that's what I said. In terms of writing, it's not all there. Visually, it's fucking fantastic. It's beautiful. Save for the 3D elements. Overall, I'm not really sure, because it's one of those movies that's definitely better in memory.
Yes,
than it is actually watching.
I think and that's why Dante and I were talking about earlier. We watched, or not like I said, but in the last podcast I mentioned that we watched these movies quite a while ago. And part of the reason of that is I like to let them sit, because I feel like how I remember the experience talks about the substance itself too. Like, yes, experiencing it there in the now, it definitely tells a lot about something, but how it, like, what it leaves with you, I think is also very important. And this is definitely a movie, I think, that definitely it's better on the palette of hindsight than it is actually going through it. I will admit, I watch this movie a ton, but it's usually on in the background, and I don't pay too much attention to it, and I rarely ever finish it. I usually get to the part where she sees Zaniba, and then I'm like, okay, I know the ending, and I'll shut it off or whatever. And you know, like I think more fondly of it in memory than I do like actually sitting and watching through it. And that's why in on a scale of disappointing to a masterpiece, I'm gonna say it's a joyful romp through the park, right? Like, it's not something you want to think about too hard. It's not something you're going to think about too hard. But you know, it's kind of nice to just have on in the background, stop and smell the roses, sort of. You appreciate it for what you see, but it's not something you're going to devote too much time to. So that's how I feel about it.
I think on a scale of absolute trash to absolute godlike, I think it's a reheated McDonald's.
Oh my god, that's so mean.
It's not bad. No, it's not bad.
Reheated McDonald's is not good. That is not good.
It's not as good. You know, I'll say it's. I enjoy reheated McDonald's.
Okay, well, okay,
that's
different.
I prefer it fresh, but it's only okay for me. I mean, visually it gets carried, but in terms of the writing and in terms of like some of the 3D things that pop forward, it throws me out of it too much. So I give it's reheated McDonald's out of 5.
Out of 5? That's not bad. Yeah, like I said, it's my least favorite Miyazaki movie, and people love this movie. They're gonna hate us for this, you know that, right? Like,
oh yeah, we're gonna get crucified.
Oh yeah, they love this movie, and I think that's great. Like, I'm glad you guys can, but man, it's just not for me. Especially like he's just got so many other movies that I really enjoy. But oh well, that's what it is, ain't it? Well, anyway, I know we hate us now, but thank you for watching. Artistically Speaking, Dante, where can they find you?
They can find me at Twitter at retro_goblin.
All right, and I am Bam, and you can find me at Bamzeram, BAMZERAM. I'll be on Twitter. I'm always on Twitter. Also, if you'd like to contact us, leave us a message. You can at artisticallyspeakingpod@gmail.com. And of course, feel free to leave any comments and stuff. I'm pretty sure you love this movie too, but if you're one of the few that don't, let us know. I want to know that I'm not I'm not the only one who has my hang-ups with this movie.
We're gonna get an email of somebody teaching us how to tie a noose.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's gonna be pretty bad, but that's okay. Yeah, I've definitely, Dante, we'll have to show you some other Studio Ghibli movies because they're always a treat. But in the meantime, this has been Artistically Speaking with your hosts, Bam and Dante. And until next time, never feel guilty about your pleasures.
See ya.
Thanks again for watching. You can find Artistically Speaking on Facebook or follow us on Twitter at ArtsySpeakPod. That's ArtsySpeakPod. The intro music is They Come From Above from the album Blast Processor by the talented Tony Lays. You can check out and purchase their work at Tony Lays, that's TONILEYS.bandcamp.com. Again, that's TonyLays.bandcamp.com.